The school bell is a call to battle. Every step to class a step into the firing line. Here is the target, fine skin at the temple, cheeks still rounded from being 15. Surrendered, surrounded, she takes the bullet in the head and walks on. Welcome back to GCSE Litcast. Today we're looking at A Century Later by Imtiaz Dharker. So, A Century Later, published in 2014 by Pakistani-born British poet Imtiaz Dharker, explores the enduring nature of violent oppression and the extraordinary resilience of young women who defy it. This is a visceral poem and a commentary on how ideas and the human spirit can remain almost bulletproof, even in the face of lethal force. So there's several big ideas in this poem that we're going to talk about. The first being invincibility, specifically the invincibility of ideas. So this central theme is that while violence can kill a body, it is ultimately powerless against the ideas of the mind and the passion of the heart. And the speaker asserts that you can't kill a book or the buzzing in it, emphasising the will to learn and the will to grow is indestructible. It also pictures education as kind of like a battlefield. So it uses this extended metaphor where the school bell is a call to battle and every step to class is like this step into the firing line, which really highlights that harrowing reality for girls who risk their lives simply to pursue an education. We also have this idea of the right to being ordinary. So Dharker champions the idea that everyone has a right to be ordinary and catalogues these simple, peaceful joys like attending a wedding, wearing bangles, painting fingernails, as these radical acts of normalcy that should be available to everyone without fear. There's also a sense of generational defiance and solidarity. So the poem concludes with a murmur or a swarm of these schoolgirls rising together. And this suggests this sort of collective resilience where young women stand on the front line in solidarity, refusing to let terror dissuade them. And that bravery here really kind of is shown through that solidarity, that unity of the girls together. And then finally, we've got this idea of targeting youth, which is ultimately tragedy and a real kind of tragic idea. This world where children are the first and the most widespread victims of conflict, either directly or indirectly. And it really kind of pushes back against the oppressive destruction of youthful innocence and that sense of individual identity which can be destroyed as a result of this. So, let's think a little bit about the context here. So the poem is from this 2014 collection and it alludes to the First World War. So the outbreak of the First World War in 1914, because if you think about A Century Later, it was written in 2014, so that kind of makes sense. So by setting the poem a century later, Dharker suggests that while the nature of conflict has changed, the kind of shaking of foundations, of communities, the kind of destruction of humans by global violence still remains a constant. There's also modern real life inspiration, and I know that so many of you will have studied Malala, and when you read those opening lines you most definitely will think of someone like her. So it really parallels the story of Malala, and if you don't know who Malala is, she's a 17-year-old activist, and she survived this assassination attempt by the Taliban because she advocated for girls' education. And she's gone on to do, incredible things, and she survived against the odds. So we've got that more modern allusion as well as the reference to World War One. The poet also has a particular perspective. So as someone who's born in Pakistan but then raised in the UK, Dharker uses her work to engage with these themes of freedom, of gender and cultural displacement. And it reflects her kind of personal relationship with the country of her birth and the ongoing struggles there for women's rights. Thinking about rights, if you think broader as well, to human rights more of a human rights context. So the piece serves as really quite a powerful reminder of ongoing violence faced by these marginalised groups, and therefore kind of this urgent need to protect the right to autonomy and education there. So thinking about some of the big themes here, we've got this idea of contrasting warlike imagery with the innocence and beauty of a 15-year-old girl's mind. So that binary opposition, that contrast between war and everyday life, and therefore the comparison between them. We've also got nature as this kind of potential, and we've seen this in quite a few of the poems in the anthology, with nature being used as a potential for new beginnings or a potential saviour for us. So Dharker uses this natural imagery, such as the orchard in full bloom and the field humming under the sun, and it kind of symbolises these incredible possibilities that exist within a girl's mind despite that kind of violence around her, and the fact that these possibilities are a natural part of her. They're part of her natural disposition. And then finally, the idea of resilience and courage. So whilst it is a fairly visceral and harrowing poem, the focus does remain on feminine resilience and the harrowing courage required for children to bear such heavy burdens in their pursuit of learning, and the fact that, you know, for them to be able to get to school, the risks that they have to take compared to, us, who the biggest risk is probably missing the bus, then, it really kind of puts things in perspective for us. So that is A Century Later, and we are, I think, now halfway through the anthology, or just over halfway through. So, lots more still to come in terms of some notes and some annotation, hints and tips as well. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If there's anything that you particularly want to hear in future episodes, then you can of course contact us using the information in the links below, and we will see you in the next one. Thank you. Listening to Litcast, the podcast for GCSE and A-level revision. The music that you hear in this episode is called Galaxy and was written by Ixon, and you can find the rest of his music on SoundCloud. If you found the podcast helpful and would like to support us further, then the Ko-fi link in the description will give you an opportunity to tip us. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you in the next one.